So when I was looking for more TV shows, more music TV shows to react to, I was mainly looking for the ITV chart show, and there doesn't seem to be any full episodes of that available, probably because of copyright for all the video clips. And I've found a few more Top of the Pops, and I do intend to react to some more Top of the Pops soon, but one interesting thing I found was this, and it's the very first episode of ITV's attempt to rival Top of the Pops, the Roxy. And this is from 9th of June 1987, I think. All starting off with a brilliant track, Victim of Love by Erasure. Great Erasure single, this. So this was an ITV production. Tyne Tees, which was, for those old enough to remember, was one of the ITV regions based in Newcastle. I believe the Roxy was filmed in Newcastle as well. And like I say, this was from June 1987, so almost a year after the Top of the Pops from the other day that I reacted to. But I was still 6 years old, but a couple of weeks off my 7th birthday. So we are being quite chronological here, as it's some obvious miming from Erasure, as Andy Bell has no microphone and Vince Clarke is playing an acoustic guitar. And there is some woman, was she ballet dancing? Ah, now that's more like Top of the Pops, seeing the audience dance. Don't think it gave the chart position. It was unusual, the charts they used. They always use what they called the network charts, which, to cut a long story short, was basically not the official singles chart that the BBC and Top of the Pops used, but one that local radio used, you know, stations like Capital and Piccadilly of Manchester, etc. And their charts always counted airplay, I believe. I didn't like the network chart when I was younger. If it wasn't official, canonical BBC Radio 1 / Top of the Pops, it wasn't for me. The network chart always felt like a bit of a copy, a bit of a cop-out even. Plus, on the radio, it was always presented, or certainly was in my youth, by Dr. Fox, who just got on my tits. But I remember seeing a bit of the Roxy. Ooh, that was a short dress she was wearing. I remember seeing a bit of the Roxy when I was younger. It's not something I watched very often. I think often it was on late at night, and maybe my dad used to tape it sometimes, but I don't remember seeing it week in, week out. So it's going to be interesting for me to watch a full episode when I've probably not seen a full episode of this in over 30 years. I think this only lasted for about a year, and the ratings were so poor, they just cancelled it. So the presenters are Kid Jensen and Kevin Sharkey. Sorry, I'm just trying to read some of that text scrolling on the bottom. It's like music news, yeah. Yeah, Kevin Sharkey's an unusual presenter, because I don't think he'd done any presenting work, and I don't think he really did any since, but I know him from one place. He was in a very brief scene in an episode of Father Ted. I'll try and find a picture of him from his bit in Father Ted and put it on screen if I remember. Too busy talking, I didn't even see who this is. I apologise for that. Oh, it's Alison Moyet. This is pleasant enough. It's some good music so far. I suppose if, like Top of the Pops, they could only really depend on what's in the top 40 in that week, then this was probably a good week to pick, as there looks to be some strong singles in the chart this week. So yeah, the Roxy, I don't think it lasted much over a year. I think by the end of summer 1988 even, it had been cancelled. It just didn't catch on. And it's not really surprising. I mean, it's trying to be a little bit different to Top of the Pops in that the studio seems more like an actual gig rather than the BBC's obvious TV studios. But a lot of the things are also similar to Top of the Pops already, like the two presenters, and the credits are quite similar as well. I think this will be called Ordinary Girl. Should know what this is called. I have heard this, but not in many years. Yeah, sorry, I'm not really saying much. I'm just enjoying this song. It's very nice. Yeah. My favourite Alison Moyet single was Is This Love from 1986. And I know that's definitely 86. Well, A, because I just know things like that, because I'm a music nerd. And B, you hear it quite prominently in the famous Christmas Day 1986 episode of EastEnders. The one where Den issues divorce papers to Ange. It's played on the jukebox of the Queen Vic, by the way. They haven't got Alison Moyet doing a live performance on EastEnders. Oh. Unusual graphics here for the chart. Only doing the top 20, seemingly.
At 17. Hi, I'm Suzanne Vega, and you're watching.
She sounded more like a robot than an actual woman, Suzanne Vega.
British tour is up to 16. And what do you know? The Welsh warbler is beside himself.
Two Tom Jones hits back to back. Bloody hell.
Nothing's going to stop her as she climbs 18. At 13, the House Martins won't get overexcited as they fall.
Not saying what the names of the tracks are, which is a bit annoying.
And at 11, the best live band in the world, U2.
I don't like that, him sort of giving his opinions and stuff. He should just say the artist and the track name. Someone at a cameo is writing for Duran Duran, apparently. Nice. Multipello sings to his mum's gas cooker. Broken English. I've heard of them. I've probably heard them. Let's see if I remember it. Coming on strong and broken English. It's ringing very vague bells. I have to understand, like, this is over 32 years old. And I probably didn't see this episode at all when it came out. A lot of these hits may not have been on Top of the Pops. I did listen to the UK Top 40 on Radio 1, not the network charts, that's wank. But I used to listen to the UK Top 40 on Radio 1 most Sundays. But so many different hits every week. You can't remember them all. Certainly not when you're that young, and now you're almost 40 years old. I don't know if it's because of the videotape transfer from whoever originally recorded this episode to YouTube, but the sound feels a lot different for the Roxy than it does for most of the Top of the Pops I've seen. It sounds more... Well, sounds cheaper, to be honest. Like, Top of the Pops, even like when it's quite an old clip, it's got that kind of BBC sheen to it, whereas this feels a bit more raw, a bit less produced, which is probably what they were going for. But it's been a good start with Erasure and Alison Moyet. I've just realised the first two acts on the Roxy, Vince Clarke obviously was in Erasure, and he used to be in a duo with Alison Moyet, so there's kind of a link between the first two acts there, which is interesting. I can't say I'm overly keen on this. It's getting a bit annoying. I do remember it, sadly, now that it's got going a bit. I don't think I was that bothered when I was a kid. What did he dress like? Like grown-up scouts, is it? The Boy Scouts? Not sure where Broken English are from. I want to say Australia, but I don't know. Because I'm reacting to these episodes as is, I'm not doing any pre-research. There'll be big gaps, really, in my knowledge of certain acts. And rather than just sort of skim through an episode, look up some info and then react to it, I'd rather do a fresh reaction. Oh, there we have end of part 1. We're back with part 2. Oh, it's Pepsi and Shirley, Goodbye Stranger. So Pepsi and Shirley, those of you my age or thereabouts may remember, but they were Wham's backing singers and dancers for, well, many years. I think pretty much all of Wham's run from the early 80s to 1986. And then Wham had split up in 1986. And Pepsi and Shirley finally embarked on a solo career. Well, not a solo career, but because it's still a duo, but you know what I mean. They'd stepped out of the shadow of George Michael and Andrew Ridgeley, put it that way. Now, one or both of these married someone famous, I think. I think it may have been... Oh, no, I can't remember. It may have been Pepsi, or it could have even been Shirley, who married one of Spandau Ballet. Martin Kemp, I think, who was also in EastEnders. One of these was and may still be married to him, but I can't remember which. And the other one, who isn't married to a Spandau, might be married to someone famous, but I can't remember. It's great, this, isn't it? Just watching me talk over this rather underwhelming pop song and trying to remember useless facts that I can't even remember right. As I said earlier on, the Roxy was filmed in Newcastle, mainly for, well, production purposes, because it was a Time Tease production and their officers were in Newcastle upon Tyne. One thing I do remember reading about the Roxy many years ago was that a lot of the acts hated travelling up to do the Roxy because it was in Newcastle. If you think about it, back then, 30 odd years ago, television and music was very London-centric. So to have to go to Newcastle, which is quite a way away for, well, anyone who is sort of south of Leeds, really. Smith's new single, Girlfriend in a Coma, released at end of July. Good tune, that.
I love you by Phoebe. No, I have a new single coming out in 2 weeks. It's a live, me singing live at the NEC. It's called We've Got Tonight.
Great stuff. Now, would you like to introduce the next Roxy?
Yeah, this is a chap that I like, and I know you all love. From the Roxy Vault, I believe.
I didn't catch who that was. She looked familiar, but... So they're playing like an old video, sort of. But Tom Jones was in the charts at this point. Probably with this. I think his song A Boy From Nowhere may have been out around this time as well. But old Tom Jones. Proof that you can have a singing career just by shouting in a Welsh accent. That's a bit unfair, but it's not to my taste particularly. Which Bond theme did Tom Jones do? Thunderball, I think it was. There again, and I love James Bond, and I like a lot of the themes, but that wasn't one of the better Bond themes. As films go, it's pretty good. Until they decided to remake it like 20 years later with an even older Sean Connery in an even more obvious wig in Never Say Never Again. There's nothing wrong with this. It's a nice 60s pop hit. It's, like I say, Tom Jones isn't someone who pitches my tent particularly, but nothing wrong with that. Wondering why it re-entered the charts in '87. Was it on an ad or something? a lot of old stuff was re-entering the charts because it was on TV commercials, like Percy Sledge, Benny King, things like that. Well, top 10, the network top 10.
At 9, it's the studio-based band of hit music lovers, Mirage. At 8, no strangers to the Roxy, Pepsi and Shirley. Erasure, who opened our hit factory, move up 8 to number 7. Going down, though, are the London combo with a pal called Johnny, who hates jazz.
Kid Jensen is really shit doing these.
Wet, wet, wet. At 4, from the Mannequin film, Starship find the going getting tough.
It was fine, because I've seen old Top of the Pops episodes with David Jensen back when he was firmly in the BBC family. And he just read the charts out normally, but... Here's a nice 1987 classic, this. Can't go wrong with this one from Whitney. I don't like a lot of Whitney Houston stuff, but this is one catchy tune. And this is also sampled heavily in one of my favourite Justified Ancients of Moo Moo singles, Whitney Joined the Jams. Go and check that out on YouTube, it'll be there somewhere. I'll be interested to know how similar the network chart, as in this one from this week, was to the Radio, well, the official Gallup chart, but the one Radio 1 and Top of the Pops would use. I might look that Gallup chart up later on. But I might stick the top 10 on screen, actually. I'm not going to look up the network one, just rewind this video and have a little look. If you can bear to listen to Kid Jensen talking utter bollocks. That's a Kevin Sharkey, yeah, he seems a bit nervous, but I think Kevin Sharkey now is an artist. Weird, isn't it? Like, what a weird career trajectory from presenting on the Roxy to bit part in Father Ted to being an artist.
And they're all here tonight. And the next band up are doing very, very well in America at the moment. And David can tell you all about it.
Aren't they just? You know who they are. I'm talking about Curiosity.
That Curiosity Killed the Cat and Johnny Hates Jazz. I don't know, they were kind of... Even as a 6-7-year-old, that's 6-7, that probably sounded like 6-7-year-old. I wasn't sick, I was a little bit of a sickly child, but I was quite healthy by then. But as a kid turning almost 7, even back then I felt there was something a bit pretentious, for want of a better term, about Curiosity and Johnny Hates Jazz. I mean, I didn't know what pretentious meant when I was 7, but I do now, so... I just didn't like them when I was 7, I couldn't have told you why then, but... And look at him with his bleeding beret on, he looks a right twat. Had a weird name as well, didn't it? Ben Volpierre Piero? I mean, if that's his real name, then fair enough, but if that is a stage name, then what a prick. So this was out after probably their biggest single, I think it was, Down to Earth. That made the top 10, probably the top 5. Don't think it was the number 1 though, that would have been late 86, maybe early 87. Just does nothing for me, this like sophisti-pop. I think the only sophisti-pop song I liked from around this period was Breakout by Swing Out Sister, because that's just like really upbeat and catchy. But they look like they belong in like a jazz club, which is ironic given that one of the bands I was slagging off in this genre was Johnny Hates Jazz, but it's a kind of jazzy soul, kind of up their own arse kind of thing that was briefly popular for a year or two in the late 80s. Not for me. Oh, this is provided in association with Nescafe. Oh, so there you go, that was the end of the Roxy. Bit of a bit of an anticlimactic ending, really, and they just put the theme tune over some clips, which is a bit miserable. Top of the Pops would play a top 40 hit over the end credits, usually the number one, sometimes something else. But I hope you enjoyed this reaction to the Roxy. Started off well, I think, but kind of went a bit crap. Thank you all for watching, and I do hope that you all join me for my next video, reacting to probably Top of the Pops again. Cheers everyone, see ya!